kindly make a donation to the heroes at home, Cancer Sucks, as well as the Making Strides charities. 3 awesome charities that do a world of good for our men and women in the military and those suffering from cancer. And to our awesome cops, military personnel, and emergency responders. Please stay safe. You're always in our heart.
Doctor, these aliens he described.
How much did you hear?
Bipeds, reptilian, armed with some kind of sonic device.
Yes, ice warriors. Yes. Jem'Hadar, I've met them before. They come from the planet Mars.
Were the ice warriors behind the extinction of the Aenar?
Greetings, folks. Blind Dyslexic. About a few weeks ago, I thought of an interesting way of combining Doctor Who, Star Trek to Doctor Who. And I posted a video about it. Now it's time also to do the reverse, the Doctor Who being responsible for stuff in Star Trek. As we know from the next to last adventure of Strange New Worlds, Hemmer, awesome character. I'll leave a little notion at the end of this video on how I think they could bring him back, even though I know he's dead. But here's a what if. As we know from Kirk era, the original series, on the Aenar were no more. We didn't see them. And then with the Enterprise adventure, referred to as the Aenar, we see them for the first time, basically. Here's the what if. What if the reason why we don't see the Aenar is that they were devastated, killed, culled, however you want to look at it, by the Ice Warriors. You have 2 races that are based in cold. And you could be set up to where it was said that 2 clans of Ice Warriors showed up in order to invade Andoria. And due to the armor or due to just their physiological or something, the Aenar's chicanery was not affecting the Ice Warriors in the manner in which they hoped. Now, here's the notion. Enterprise, commanded by Pike, comes upon a piece of Flopson and Jetson, which they soon discover is a monitoring device, not from Section 31, but from the Federation. On top of that, it could be set up that this piece of Flopson and Jetson is granted from the Federation, but from a fringe group or xenophobic-esque group that is monitoring Andoria. There's an awesome way, and if they hadn't knocked off Hammer, sorry, they hadn't knocked off Hammer, another way they could have gone was Hammer happened to be on Andoria and calls out to Pike to report about it before communications are lost. Now, how I think they could easily bring back Hemmer. Either at the start of the series or 1 or 2 episodes prior to the episode that he left in, it's revealed that he was actually a member of the Founders, Odo's race. And he was there to spy on the Federation. In order to manage to easily escape, they allowed themselves to be infected by the baby gun. By the little baby gun. But that's one idea. Blind Dyslexic. Ciao for now.
Does a Federation station hold a deadly secret wish to be forgotten?
Extra. A little extra. Here's a notion about another section that they could do set up for that Ice Warriors in the Federation. You have a Federation ship come to a space station which no one's heard anything from for some time. So they're turning down this way. Federation station they haven't heard from in some time. Had to wait for an ambulance to go by. And 2 out of the 4, 2 out of the 6 members of a search team finds basically what we considered as a remote cob. Various aliens included, in various states of autopsy. And one of the 2 uses the word Martian for one of the dead bodies on one of the gurneys, one of the tables. Well, the commanding officer is seconds away from coming through communications in protest when the second person, just purely by happenstance, starts describing the armor that is nearby, which causes him to understand that this officer was using the rarely used nom de guerre for an Ice Warrior. And before they have a chance to even beam them up, an Ice Warrior and leader confront them and inquire, each assures the other that they had nothing to do with what we started. But nonetheless inquires how they know what a Ice Warrior resembles outside their armor. And said officer refers back to something they learned from Pike's encounter. And this idea could be used as either like a B or C storyline in some future event. But either way, there's your notions. Blind Dyslexic. Ciao for now.
Was an old professor to the Doctor and the master behind the Federation taking up the Temporal Prime Directive.
A couple or so weeks ago, I did a video talking about how Star Trek was responsible for stuff in Doctor Who. So I figured it's just proper time to do where Doctor Who was responsible for stuff in Star Trek. As we know from the previous video, Borusa, while president, due to the Doctor's little absenteeism, was seeking immortality like all the others from Rassilon. And like the others, he gained it. What if, years before this all happened, while he was still a professor at the Pridoni Academy? I only mention that because it was touted as the most ruthless of the academies on Gallifrey, and the Doctor and the Master were also alumni there. And yes, Borusa taught one or both of them. So during his academy, his professor days, what if Borusa came to the Federation and was the one who brokered the Temporal Prime Directive? Okay, let's be honest. He strong-armed them, being the Time Lords that they are. Because just like in the two Doctors, Colin Baker and Patrick Troughton, the second and sixth Doctors, the second Doctor came to a space station requesting from a good friend of his, Dastari, that the two scientists who were investigating in the whole aspects of time travel were on the verge of destroying and putting time-space in jeopardy. And the Sontarans, two Sontarans, were also seeking this so they could win their battle with the Rutans. So like I said, what if coming there, Borusa, I wouldn't say go as far as manipulating things, but managed to convince them that the Temporal Prime Directive would be in their best interests, or the Time Lords, who normally have the non-interference, would step in and ensure that they basically would not be interfering with time. Just an interesting point of view. I know there's not much I could do on this subject, or talk about, but nonetheless, that is one of the many ways they could connect Doctor Who with Star Trek.
Do the Jem'Hadar protect the Vorta because of stolen cloning technology?
Hey folks and fans, Blind Dyslexic. A couple or so weeks ago I did a video on how Star Trek was responsible for certain things in Doctor Who. And now here's another of those, but the reverse. Doctor Who, responsible for stuff in Star Trek. As we know, the Sontarans are a clone race. They were introduced in the third Doctor John Pertwee episode, The Time Warrior. I believe that's the same episode where the name of his planet was also introduced. I'm going to have to go back and check. I don't remember. I know it was a Pertwee episode, but I can't remember if it was that one or another one. But nonetheless, as we also know from the Sontaran stratagem, a 10th Doctor adventure, they were trying to use the Earth as one giant cloning bath in order to increase their numbers so they could maintain their war, never-ending war, with the amoebic shape changers, the Rutans. Now, the Rutans were introduced in the Tom Baker 4th Doctor adventure, Horror of Fang Rock. Right, there's the brief history thing. Now, what if the Vorta, though they improved on the whole cloning aspect of the Sontarans, what if they stole cloning technology sometime in their past? What if at some point in time they also encountered the Jem'Hadar and realized that they're going to need to be protected, so they got them addicted to the white so they'd protect them from the Sontarans. So getting them addicted to the white protects them from the Sontarans. So early on, before they realized they're numbered, the Jem'Hadar assumed that they were the same Vorta. So to them, it appeared as though the same Vorta was merely immortal. And of course, at some point in time, they encountered the Founders, whereupon, since God is supposed to be everywhere, and since the Founders, the Changelings, can shapeshift, and that's also a godly type of thing, there you go. There's your connection to Doctor Who by way of the Sontarans had their cloning technology stolen from them by the Vorta.
Could the apprehension towards Adira have been due to a Rutan?
Extra. As we know from the previous video, the Sontarans are at war with the shape changers, the Rutans, who, like I said, was introduced in Horror of Fang Rock. What if sometime when the Discovery was traveling through the temporal wormhole, a Rutan got in one of the Trill pools and corrupted it? Simple enough. They don't know how, they don't know when, but somehow it corrupted the pool, merging with it in some manner. So you have the implantability of the Trill, but the lovely disposition of the Rutan. And the Rutans are like a combination of, like I said, the Borg and the Founders. Borg, due to the fact that they're part of a collective, So they speak in the whole we, and founders do to they shapeshift, but with a twist. They consume whatever it is they need to have an image print of. So if you think about it, Bashir and Kira are pretty much screwed, because the energy released while consuming said person is the energy in which the Rutans feed upon. So in a way, when Adira came to Trill, in some way, shape, and form, they could have suspected initially that Adira may have had one of those compromised Trills. Well, there's a connection right there. And in closing, think about it. If a Sontaran and a Klingon battled each other, met each other, each would look upon the other as honorable, because the Sontaran and the Klingons would be looked upon by each other as true warriors.
I have an energy wave at 240 degrees Mark 6 port, sir. Visual. My God. Shields!
Could the Daleks have been behind the destruction Praxis?
Alright, folks and fans, here's our next lineup for Who to Track. Who to Track. Yeah, I know how that sounds. Sorry. We didn't know who should track. But nonetheless, first we flash back all the way back to the 96 Doctor Who. Well, don't worry, I'm not going to recite everything that happened, just a few moments of it. During that prologue, where the trial for the Master was going on Skaro for all places, because you have basically a triumvirate of enemies right there. The Daleks would have killed both the Doctor and the Master in a New York minute, due to how many times the Doctor defeated them and how many times the Master has screwed them over. So, big question there is, was there a Trojan horse plan going on? But nonetheless, here's the theory. They slipped the Doctor after executing the Master. They slip him what the Doctor assumes is his remains, but in truth is an augmented Khaled with Master DNA. Of course, they know the Doctor would be checking. But that augmented Khaled was in truth supposed to take over the Doctor to lead a spearhead invasion upon Gallifrey. But the Black Guardian or the Valyard time rams the Doctor into the eve of the millennium. We all know what happened in that if we watched the movie. But the control console shocks the augmented Khaled enough to bring forward the Master persona. The true master arrives on a cargo vessel behind one of Scaro's 2 moons, whereupon a Dalek and a Star Trek rogue, in other words, Klingon, Romulan, you name it, one of them joins the master aboard his TARDIS, 2 of them, in other words, the Dalek and that Star Trek rogue, so they can travel to Gallifrey. Now, the master momentarily lands on a Kazon vessel, whereupon he claims this is one of a handful of ships that the Time Lords will randomly kidnap, along with others, to test their defensive shielding for war games. One of the Star Trek rogues stays behind. The master, because the rogue was the only one that left the TARDIS with the master. Now, the master then arrives upon Praxis, whereupon he's in reality looking for a scientist that is not only responsible for the ailment that Kirk contracted when he was younger, but in hopes that this same individual can remove the cheetah virus from his system that he contracted in the series finale, Survival. The Dalek realizes it's been duped, attempts to halt their departure, and we all know what happens to Praxis.
Does a space cantina hold the truth behind Praxis?
Now, fast forward to sometime in the future to a cantina on an asteroid that is rumored to be the very crystalline island that Superman chucked into space near the end of Superman Returns. I know, mixing genres, I know, but follow me on this. But nonetheless, several aliens, Klingons included, begin chatting about Praxis. And an eavesdropper, who is not the reason for Praxis being brought up in the first place, they attempt to claim that the Daleks were behind Praxis's destruction. But are quickly laughed off due to 2 reasons. The first is Praxis's location. It wouldn't aid nor hamper the Daleks in any which shape and form. So why invade? Secondly, its atmosphere. Even though they're protected in that little tanky-like thing, I know, isn't that cute, tanky? That little tanky-like thing, I know, isn't that so cute? But nonetheless, the atmosphere still bleeds through and is still quite toxic to the Dalek, or Khaled. Finally, down in the catacombs, though it may not happen the same way twice, the air pressure within the little tanky thing will increase or decrease. So we can imagine how snug it could be within.
You've been watching TBD on Doctor Who to Star Trek. I have been your host, the Blind Dyslexic. I do other podcasts and walkabouts. Please hit the notification bell, leave a comment, and subscribe. I thank you for listening. Farewell.